every fourth Monday at 7 p.m. W5FC. This is the W5FC repeater, PL 110.9. ARRL NTS Net nightly at 6:30 p.m. W5FC.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Does anyone need to use a repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet? This is Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima. My name is Brendan. I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign break and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? This is a dedicated net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me. And stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.88 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5 FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc.org right now for the complete list. Remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. The net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. General announcements. Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events. Where and when you can look through a telescope. National Space Society events. Discussion topic of the evening. What's up? Space exploration and space history. Constellation of the week. Space launches of the week. Recent astronomical discoveries. Visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. Astronomical Q&A. And 73 rounds. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. So we're going to start with low power and short time check-ins. Please come now with your call sign, name, and where you're transmitting from this evening.
W5 BLT Whiskey 5 Bravo Lima Tango Bill Garland.
Hey, we got just one. W5BLT, Bill in Garland. Thank you for joining the net, Bill. Next, let's do general check-ins. Please come now.
Kilo Fox 5, November, X-Ray Romeo, John, Caddo Mills.
Kilo Golf 5 Bravo Whiskey J, go ahead.
Kilo 5 Golf Lima Delta Randy Rowlett.
Kilo Foxtrot 5 Zulu Bravo Lima Bill, Farmers Branch.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Papa Lima Huey Richardson. Kilo Foxtrot 5, Romeo Foxtrot Victor Richard Rowlett.
This is Alpha 5 Alpha Hotel Robert Richardson.
Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, Tom, Louisville.
This is Alpha Golf 9, Sierra Golf, Antonio in Dallas.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha, Chaz, Mesquite at Planet Earth.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony, Dallas, also on Planet Earth.
We've got KF5 NXR John, KG5 BZWJ, K5 GLD Randy, KF5 ZBL Bill, KF5 PLL Huey, KF5 RFW Richard, AA5 AH Robert, KE5 ICX Tom, KG9 Sierra Golf Antonio, KF5 JJ Chaz, NT5 TM Tony. All right. Do we have any Echolink check-ins?
Biz, Kilo 5, Kilo Tango X-Ray, Kelly and Cleveland.
Juliet, Delta Whiskey, John in Norman, Oklahoma.
November 5, Oscar Foxtrot, River Street.
Foxtrot 5, Papa Delta Sierra, Billy and Sherman.
Lance, I'm in Louisville, but currently I'm in Clarksville.
Foxtrot 5, Papa Delta Sierra, Billy and Sherman.
All right. We have K5KTX, Kelly, K5JDW, John, N5 Oscar Foxtrot, Clay, KF5PDS, Billy, and Lance. You doubled with someone, and I did not get your call. Would you please repeat it?
November 5, Golf Hotel Oscar, Lance.
Okay, November 5, Golf Hotel Oscar, Lance. Welcome to the net. Okay, any other check-ins by Eddie Moe? Please come now.
Kilo India 5, Papa Whiskey November, Tom in Plano, Texas.
Okay, we got KI5PWN Tom. All right, we'll do some more check-ins periodically. All right, general announcements. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed ham. Please come now.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike. Go ahead, Tony.
Thank you, Brenda. I'd like to remind everybody that Texas State Parks on the Air has just closed down for tonight, and sadly I haven't had time to participate, but it's starting up at tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Texas State Parks on the Air begins again. So I hope you'll enjoy the beautiful weekend and participate in this awesome operating event. Also, don't forget that this is not our last net of the night. We will have the After Blue Movie Discussion Net discussing the strange independent Australian science fiction film 2067 at 10:30-ish tonight. And finally, if you'd like to put together a nice lightweight portable end-fed half-wave antenna, the Dallas Amateur Radio Club has got you covered. That's our lecture and lab kit this month. Please check out w5fc.org. You don't have to play the first come first served game. You can sign up in advance to get your kit 2 Saturdays from today. I hope you'll do that. It should be a fun day. Anyway, have a great night. NT5TM, thank you for listening, and please enjoy Skype.
Thank you, Tony. Okay, other nets in the area. The AMSAT, Radio Amateur Satellite Group, has 2 nets available to Dallas residents on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. You will need Echolink installed and be registered. You can find the net under Groups and AMSAT. Also, a live audio link is available on their website, AmsetNet.com. This net originates in Houston, Texas. Dallas AmsetNet East, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on this repeater, 146.88 megahertz, PL 110.9 megahertz, Tuesdays. Tom, N5HYP, is the net control. All are welcome to check in. First Tuesday of the month is DARC Club Night, so no Amset East that night. Dallas AmsetNet West is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, 147.14 megahertz, PL 110.9 megahertz, positive offset. The DARC hosts a number of nets through the week. On Mondays, the first week is Ham Fixin's Net. Second week is MCOM 101. Third week is Ham Fixin's Net. Fourth week is Geek Net. And fifth week is Surprise Net. Now, if we told you what it was, it wouldn't be a surprise. Honor participation is encouraged. Then on Tuesdays, Amset East, 8 p.m., Q&As, info and news for amateur satellites. Fridays, CERT City simulation at 8 p.m. Learn about emergency radio communications via CERT-trained amateur radio operators. Melissa, KI5GRH, is usually the net control. Visit the most disaster-prone city in the universe every Friday. CERT City, all are welcome. Saturdays, TechNet at 7 to 8, and of course, Skynet. First and third Sundays, Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the air, MODA. And then every day, there's the ARRL Net, National Traffic System Training Net, every night at 6:30 p.m. All are welcome to check in on any or all of these nets. All right, right after this net, at about 10:30, we have another net called the Afterglow. And there's a little synopsis here. I'd like Tom, KE5ICX, to read this. Are you available, Tom?
If I said no, what would you do? This is KE5ICX. Yes, Tony mentioned what the name of the movie was. I'm going to give you a synopsis. Ethan looked at the time machine in disgust. He had a flat tire, and it seemed there would be no way he would move forward or backward in time without getting the darn thing fixed. The rainforest seemed like a nice place, but this wasn't his destination, and this might take a bit of time, probably because he had to send a message to a time travel tow truck company to get his device fixed. Ethan saw a bunker just up ahead. He pushed the door open, and inside was a jumpsuit, just like the one he was wearing. Almost identical. In fact, only this jumpsuit had a skeleton in it, and that skeleton had a bullet hole in its head. What's worse, it had a name tag on it. Hello, my name is Ethan. Time travel. What a pain. Join us tonight for 2067, a low-budget thriller from 2021. Yes, time travel. Tonight at 10:30. Back to you, Brenda, KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. And if you ever wanted to have time travel explained, Tom will do that tonight in Afterglow, maybe, in our discussion. All right, do we have any more check-ins? Next, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope. I'd like to call on Chaz, KF5JHA, to tell us what's going on.
Thank you, Brenda. Good evening, everyone. The next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting will be held on Friday, April the 22nd at 7:30 p.m. I think the meeting is going to be held on Zoom. Dr. Matthew Sigler, SMU professor, he's a research scientist with the Planetary Science Institute, will be the featured speaker. Dr. Sigler will be updating us on a number of different NASA missions that he's working on, including the Mars Perseverance rover. Task club members will receive an email link to the Zoom meeting in advance of the meeting, usually about a week ahead of time. And the Saturday night public observing sessions has begun again. I was at the first one in over 2 years last week. I broadcast live from there, so that was kind of good. Of course, yes, I was at the last one. It's called the Stargazer Star Party. That happens on the first Saturday of each month. It was great, with about 10 telescopes and about 25 members of the public being there. Now, one of the reasons why Skynet was picked to be on Saturday nights so that there could be an opportunity for live reports from the test public observing sessions, which are also held on Saturday night. Hopefully the other Saturday night test observing sessions will continue sometime soon, too. Now, to find out more information about that, you can go to the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas website, texasastro.org, and you can find out all sorts of information. If you want to buy a telescope or a pair of binoculars, there's information and guides about that on the website as well. Thank you, and this is KF5 JHA Backdoor Net Control. Brenda, it's all back to you.
Thank you, Chaz. At National Space Society events, Bill N5BB usually gives the news, but he hasn't checked in. Are you out there, Bill?
Kilo 5 Golf Lima Delta. Question for the Texas Astro Society.
Kilo 5 Golf Lima Delta. Go ahead and ask directly.
Yes, I was trying to find out when the next star party was. I went to the website. The website says there are none because of COVID. There was a phone number there. I called that phone number. It had information from last week. It had nothing on anything coming up. I made several transmissions on this frequency asking for info and got no response. When is this information going to be updated? K5GLD.
Okay, KF5JHA, could you assist us with this, please?
Yes, thank you, Brenda. Unfortunately, the website is run by volunteers, and they have not been able to update the information on there. The next one might not be scheduled until the first Saturday of May. The Astronomical Society has had different coordinators for each one of the Saturday nights. In Frisco, in Garland, that's the one that happened last week, in Cedar Hill, as well as Rockwall. But I don't think the other ones have started up yet. So the next one might not be until the first Saturday in May. So the updated information hopefully will get posted on the website soon, but yeah, it's lagging behind again because it's voluntary. And it wasn't decided whether to have the Garland Star Party last week until about a couple of days ahead of time. It was okayed because of the weather conditions and make sure that everything was in place for it to happen. So I apologize. This frequency, I don't know when you made your announcements. I don't monitor this all the time by any means, but I'm sorry you didn't get a response about it. So hopefully that's answered your questions. This is KF5 JHA.
Okay, yes, thank you. That would be nice to have that updated. I would like to attend the star party, but I know it's there beforehand. So thanks for any update you can give. K5GLD.
All right, thank you very much. I'm looking for information on the National Space Society, and I can't find the email offhand. I may come back to that later. But you can find information on their website, http://nssofnt.org/. And they have an active Facebook page. Just type in National Space Society of North Texas into the search box and request access. You'll receive meeting reminders and club activities.
N5BB.
There you are, Bill, N5BV. Tell us about the National Space Society of North Texas, please.
Yes, this is N5BB. I'm sorry, I was on a phone call earlier. I am the membership director of the North Texas chapter of the National Space Society. And we meet on the second Sunday afternoon of every month. So that means our meeting is tomorrow afternoon. It will be starting at 3:30 p.m. at Spring Creek Barbecue in Irving. That's on Highway 183 at Beltline. And I'm getting ready to tell you, because I have momentarily forgotten her name, just a moment. I'm getting ready to tell you the details about our speaker. So our speaker tomorrow is going to be remotely. She's going to do it via WebEx, virtually, is Sarah Scholl. She's a SE&I manager of the EVA, the Extravehicular Activity, and Human Surface Mobility Program. So she's going to talk about what the NASA astronauts are going to do on the moon during the Artemis 3 mission. So they're creating the details of what's going to happen when the astronauts reach the moon again, what they're going to do out on the moon's surface. So she's going to be talking to us tomorrow. If you would like to visit our meeting, you can come by Spring Creek Barbecue in Irving. This is on the southwest corner of the intersection of Beltline Road and Highway 183. This is a couple of miles east of the south entrance of DFW Airport. It's across the highway from Irving Mall. And the meeting will be starting at 3:30. The actual presentation will start at 4 o'clock and go from 4 to 5. If you would like to see it on WebEx virtually without being there, you can go to space.cent.com. I'm going to say that again. SPACE.SENT.com. And that website, just a moment. Hang on just a second. I'm making sure I don't tell you the wrong thing. Just a moment. I'm having difficulty here. Wait one moment. Oh, I know the problem. I'm typing incorrectly here. I apologize again. Yes, go to space.cent.com. And at that address, you will find a WebEx page with a button to register for the meeting. Click on that button, type in your name and your email address, and then it will send to you, to your email address, the login information. So go to space.cent.com, and it will redirect you to the registration page for the meeting tomorrow afternoon. If you have any questions, you can also send me an email at n5bb@arrl.net. That's November 5 Bravo Bravo @arrl.net with any questions. We have no current plans to do any immediate activities at local places in the next few weeks, but I'm sure there will be some things coming up later in the year where we'll be doing some things at schools and things. That's all I got, N5BB.
Bill. Also, in terms of news, I want to remind everybody that you only have 2 years to get ready for the next eclipse. It's 2 years from yesterday. April 8th, 2024. Totality passes right over the Dallas area. So probably is not too early to get your lawn chair and stake out your place, or maybe rent out your yard to campers or something. I know there's all the local space organizations are probably going to plan all kinds of activities, so stay tuned. All right, any more check-ins?
This is Whiskey Bravo number 4, Mike Foxtrot, India, WB4MFI, Ted, Dallas, low power.
All right, picked up WB4MFI, Ted. Welcome to the net. All right, this is WB5OZL, and our discussion topic of the evening is entitled, What Did We Leave on the Moon? Well, actually a lot. More than 413,000 pounds. That's the estimated total weight of all man-made items left on the moon since Apollo 11 astronauts became the first to land there in 1969. This lunar litter, as the documentary filmmaker Arlen Parsa called it in his 2012 short film, is itemized in a 22-page document from NASA. And here were the highlights of detritus discarded during 5 decades of visits. I would like to add, parenthetically, that we crashed a lot of lunar probes into the moon prior to 69, and obviously they're still up there. I looked it up on Wikipedia. Lunar probes, unbelievable number of failures between us and the Russians of trying to send a probe to the moon and have something awful happen to it. So it's just, and a lot of this was even in the 60s, and we're about to walk on the moon, but we can't get a lunar probe up there. It was quite a fascinating study. All right, 6 flags were left. Apollo 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, and 17. The manned missions that successfully landed on the moon between 69 and 72 all planted American flags in lunar soil. 5 of them are standing, according to Mark Robinson, a professor at Arizona State University who is a principal investigator for the NASA Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter camera, which has monitored all flags and captured photos. The Apollo 11 flag fell over when the ascent stage blasted off. Robinson. As for the 5 star-spangled banners still upright, Robinson added, they're almost certainly bleached by the atmosphere UV rays. I can't say that the flag will have very light suffer fading from violet light exposure, he adds. Since there's no record of the material the flags were made of, one can only speculate as to the degree of fading and any other damage. I can't believe they don't know the material of the flags. That's just inconceivable. Next, disc of goodwill messages. 11 carried a tiny cylindrical case made of containing a scroll with greetings from the leaders of 72 countries, including 2 countries, Yugoslavia and the Republic of Dahomey, don't exist. Given that the whole package was the size of a $50, the text inside of the disc was scanned and reduced 200 times so it could be read only with magnifying glass. The disc, whose outside reads From Planet Earth, July 1969, still sits in the current being tossed there by Buzz Aldrin. Next, gold. Well, it was an olive branch. 60 golden trinkets left a wish for peace for all mankind, according to NASA. 1971 moonwalk, Apollo 14 astronaut Alan Shepard withdrew iron to drive golf ball to the lunar landscape. Granted, he did it awkwardly, given the bulky, stiff spacesuit. To the low gravity, however, his second rough shot went 200 yards. The cute stunt apparently took mission controllers in Houston by surprise. Shepard had smuggled the golf club in his suit. He brought the club back to Earth. It's in the United States Golf Association Museum. Astronaut badge. Stand by, please. When Alan B. walked on the moon during Apollo 12's visit in 1969, he removed his silver lapel pin, which depicted a shooting star with an orbit around its tail, and tossed it into the unknown. I can still remember how it flashed in the bright sunlight and then disappeared in the distance. It was the only star I ever saw up in the black sky. The sunlight was just too bright on the moon's surface to see any of the others. The late Bean described about a work of art he painted of the scene. I often think of my silver pen resting in the dust of Surveyor Crater, just as bright and shiny as it ever was. It'll be there for millions and millions of years, or until some tourist finds it and brings it home. Next, a Bible. The commander of 1971's Apollo 15, David Scott, put a paper copy of the Holy Book with a red cover on the dashboard of an abandoned lunar roving vehicle. Fallen astronaut sculpture. Scott also left a 3.3-inch silver statuette by Belgian artist Paul van Hooijdonk, next to a plaque with the names of the 14 space explorers from the U.S. and the Soviet who had died up to that point. Astronaut excrement. The 22-page NASA document lists defecation collection devices, 5, and urine collection assemblies, 7, urine receptacles systems, 3. A heroic or indeed still humans who exceeded bodily waste on the flights up that required disposal before any return trips. 5 retroreflectors. In order to calculate the distance between the Earth and the Moon with great precision, observatories from California to France to Tokyo aim laser beams at mirrored surfaces placed on the lunar surface, first by Apollo 11 in 69, later by 14 in 15, 71, the Soviet Union's Luna 17 in 1970, and 21, 1973. Researchers can deduce the distance at any point in the orbit, which can range from about 225,000 to 252,000 miles between the Earth and its satellite, by measuring the time it takes for the laser beams to reach the Moon and then return to the Earth. Crafts, crashes, and rovers. In addition to tools used for various equipment, video footage from 72's Apollo 17 shows Jack Schmitt imploring Houston, "Let me throw the hammer, let me throw the hammer." There are more than 80 different partial or whole spacecrafts, rockets, surveyors, orbiters, and vehicles. They arrived on the Moon from the U.S. and the Soviet Union, yes, but also India, China, Israel, Japan, and Europe. Much of this machinery crashed on the lunar surface and are not operational, but 2 crafts have landed on the Moon in 2019. and one of these, the Chang'e 4 lander from China, is still working. All right, moving on. What's up, says K5JHI. It's yours.
Thank you, Brenda. This is KF5HA. There you go. My degree is in astrophysics. I'm in charge of the astrophysics lab and geology lab at College at the Brookhaven campus. We call this segment of Skynet Was Up. I'm hearing a little bit of static noise over Echolink. Am I doing okay online? On air?
You are breaking up quite a bit. It's noise from the pier.
Okay, I don't know if this is any better, but I think I've increased my power a little bit. I'm still getting static. Okay. Slide Master, slide number 2. April the 9th, the moon is at first quarter phase. Full is on April the 16th. April the 19th, the moon is at perigee, with the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth, that is distance of 365,183 kilometers. On April the 20th, the moon is at its third quarter phase. On April the 30th, the moon phase will be new. On May the 5th, the moon will be at apogee, which is a point in the moon's orbit that is further from the Earth, at 405,285 kilometers. Slide Master, number 3. The moon moves counterclockwise around the Earth, and its new is at the beginning of the lunar cycle when it's in alignment or conjunction with the sun. This is the exact moment. In fact, on April the 1st, the moon was new at exactly 1:26 a.m. Central Daylight Time. Most of the time, we just say that the new moon happens on a certain date, but we don't worry about the exact time. The name new moon is because it is at the beginning of the lunar cycle. We can see a new moon for 2 reasons. It's very close to the sun in the sky, and the flip side of the moon is facing away from the Earth. If the moon covers up the sun, then we have a solar eclipse. More about eclipses at another time. Slide Master, slide number 4, please. When we see a thin, waxing crescent moon in the evening sky for a few days after a new moon, we call this a young moon. It looks sort of like a fingernail or a smile. The moon is lit up on the right side. The moon is getting more illuminated from one night to the next. So the moon is growing, or we use the word waxing. Complete for the moon, we see a evening sky for several days after the new moon. It's called a waxing crescent. Waxing is what it's doing, which is growing, and the crescent is its shape. Slide Master, slide number 5. 7 days we have the moon. This morning on April 9th at 1:49 a.m. Central Daylight was the first quarter moon. This comes from the fact that the moon is 1/4 of the way around in orbit. There are dollars and quarters. I hope you heard that joke. Slide number 6, please. In between the quarter phase and the full moon, we have what is called a gibbous moon. The word gibbous means so part of the moon, the Earth is the moon is still growing or waxing. So the total term we use is a waxing gibbous moon. And the moon is still lit up on the right hand side. And this is KF5J and this is Skynet. Slide number 7, please. On April the 16th, at 1:56 a.m. Central Daylight Time, the moon will be full. This is when the complete disk of the moon that is facing the Earth is illuminated, and the moon is on the opposite side of the sky from the sun. The full moon rises when the sun sets, and the full moon sets when the sun rises. If the moon happens to travel through the Earth's shadow at a full moon phase, and we call this a lunar eclipse. And again, we'll talk more about eclipses during another Skynet. Slide number 8. And now, for several days after full moon, we have another gibbous moon. This time it's lit up on the left side. It's getting smaller from one night to the next. So this shrinking is called a waning. So the period of moon phases we call after full moon is called a waning gibbous. Number I'll try to finish this episode. April the 29th, 6:56 a.m. Central Daylight Time, the moon will be at its third quarter phase. We call this because it's 3/4 of the way around on the orbit of the Earth. Sometimes it's called the last quarter. The moon is about ready to complete a quarter of its orbit around the Earth. Third quarter and full moon, the moon is again at crescent. It continues to shrink in illumination from one day to the next. So we call this a waning moon, lit up on the left-hand side. Finally, on April the 30th at 3:29 p.m. Central Daylight Time, to its new phase. The start of the cycle. 29.5 days, the entire cycle. Just about the length of a month. So that's where we get the word month from. It really should be a moon, not a month. Now, why am I talking about moon phases during the Skynet? Well, next week, Skynet, on the eve before Easter, I'm going to talk about how we determine the date of Easter each year, and that depends in part on a particular moon. Slide number 10. So, on April the 12th, sky, Jupiter and Neptune will be in the same telescopic field of view. If you've never seen Neptune through a telescope, this is the time to do it. They're only going to be a few minutes of arc apart from each other. This will be great to see. So that's just in a few days. Unfortunately, last time I looked, the weather forecast was supposed to be cloudy that morning. Slide number 11, please. On April 17th, Mercury and Uranus will make a nice conjunction in the evening, west-northwestern sky. And so if you've never seen the planet Uranus, this might be the time to see that, too. It's kind of difficult to see sometimes, but this time of the year in the evening, it's easier to see. Number 12. I have to try to change something on my setup to get rid of static. On the night of April 21st, 22nd, the Lyran meteor shower, your maximum rate of about 18, and will be observing of this meteor shower. Slide number 13, on the night of April 24th, the meteor shower will peak the Venus hourly rate up to 40. And the full moon will appear meteor shower. I am KF5 JHA, and this is Skynet. The next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting is going to be on April 22nd at 7:30. I'm very excited about this, so go to texasastro.org for information on this. Master, slide number 15. Now, do any of you out there have any questions or need a fill? Do you have a general astronomy questions or everything? Maybe I know the answer, or somebody else on the net might know the answer. Come now, put your call sign if you have a question.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
Well, Tony, you sound much clearer than I do. Go ahead.
Hey, Chaz, thank you very much. I did follow your suggestion last week and install Stellarium. I'm just getting the beginnings of it. It's a program you can do a lot of things with. Boy, that Neptune opportunity on the 12th seems really tough, but with Stellarium, I might look for other viewing opportunities and chances to go star hopping later. It seems like a good program for finding opportunities. NT5TM.
Well, thank you so much. Once again, Solarium is free. Just go to Solarium. I think it's .org, and it's free. It works on PCs as well as Apple products and even Linux boxes. So that's all right. So as March, those are these words for this segment. Be safe, keep well, pray for our world, the one where humans live. Also pray for the people of Ukraine. And it's next time actually doing a segment in keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5, JHA, back to our net control. I'm going to try to change antennas. Maybe that'll work.
Thank you, Chad. This is WB50ZL. I understand my signal's not real good either. I can't change antennas, and I run on high power all the time, so I don't know what can be done about it. Do we have any more check-ins?
KI-5, Sierra Zulu Bravo, Max in Royce City. Good evening.
I'm sorry, would you repeat that, please?
I say again, KI-5, Sierra Zulu Bravo, Max in Royce City. Good evening.
Okay, got KI-5, Sierra Zulu Bravo, but I still didn't get your name.
Mike, Alpha X-Ray in Royce City.
Okay, Max, well, thank you for joining the net. Next up, Kelly, K5KTX, will tell us about space exploration and space history.
Thank you, Brenda. Good evening to everyone. This is Kelly, K5KTX. Oh, as Brenda mentioned earlier, it seems like only yesterday we were all scrambling across the United States, hoping of finding a perfect location to view the August 21st, 2017 total solar eclipse. Well, it's been 5 years since that remarkable event, and now it's time to start planning for the next one. Yesterday, April the 8th, marked 2 years until the next total solar eclipse. It will trace a narrow path of totality across 13 U.S. states from southwest to northeast, including Texas. In fact, Dallas will be fully immersed in the path of totality, and my new yard will be less than a mile from the path's center line. Now we need to figure out how to predict the weather for that day. In case you have never seen this spectacle, a total solar eclipse is when the new moon is in just the right position to completely cover the sun. In those few minutes during totality, you get 360 degrees of darkness, the animals go quiet, and from my location near Casper, Wyoming in 2017, the temperatures dropped about 15 degrees. I had temperature sensors set in different places. In addition, you can see the beautiful corona, which is the sun's outer atmosphere, stars and planets during the day, and other neat phenomena such as Bailey's bead and the diamond ring. Wait, there's more. About 6 months prior to the April 8th total solar eclipse, we get a bonus annular solar eclipse on October 14th, 2023. An annular solar eclipse is basically the same thing as a total solar eclipse, except the moon is further away, causing it to not fully cover the sun's disk. As a result, if you are in the right place, the sun's visible outer edges ringing are annulus around the moon. What makes this annular eclipse even more special is that the eclipse will travel from northwest to southeast through Texas and cross the future path of the 2024 eclipse. Wouldn't it be something to be standing in a spot a little southwest of Kerrville, Texas, for both eclipses? For those of you who experienced the 2017 eclipse, you probably remember that getting hotel or camping spots along the path was very challenging and expensive. In addition, there was the great debacle with space eclipse viewing glasses. So start making your plans now because those eclipses are not to be missed, especially since they will be so close to home. This is K5KTX for Skynet. In space history this past week, on April the 5th, back in 1973, Pioneer 11 launched to study the asteroid belt, the environment around Jupiter and Saturn, solar winds, and cosmic rays. It was the first probe to encounter Saturn, the second to fly through the asteroid belt, and the second to fly by Jupiter. Later, Pioneer 11 became the second of 5 artificial objects to achieve an escape velocity, allowing it to leave the solar system. Due to power constraints and the vast distance to the probe, the last routine contact with the spacecraft was on September 30th, 1995, and the last good engineering data was received on November 24th, 1995. Also on April the 5th, back in 1991, launched aboard Space Shuttle Atlantis' STS-37 mission, the Compton Gamma Ray Observatory was a space telescope that made observations from Earth orbit for the next 9 years. It featured 4 main telescopes in one spacecraft, covering X-rays and gamma rays, including various specialized sub-instruments and detectors. Named Nobel Prize winner Arthur Holly Compton, the telescope was a part of NASA's Great Observatory series, along with the Hubble Space Telescope, Chandra X-ray Observatory, and the Spitzer Space Telescope. It was the second to be launched following the Hubble Telescope. The mission ended on June 4th, 2000.
Kelly seems to have gone away. Can you hear us, Kelly?
I can hear you, sorry. Where did I end?
Hang on, I was moving up and down. K5 ICX, can you tell us what the last slide was? I think it was 5 or 6.
Yeah, slide 6, KE5ICX.
I think Tom just told me that it was on slide 6. Okay, so April the 7th, 2001, the Mars Odyssey spacecraft launched. It entered orbit around Mars on October 24th, 2001, and has been working there ever since. The primary science mission of Odyssey was to map the distribution of a variety of named in tribute to Arthur C. Clarke's 2001 A Space Odyssey. Mars Odyssey has proved an essential tool for exploration, and since 2010, it holds the record surviving active spacecraft at Mars. With the planned science mission of Odyssey completed in August, included as a under space, the rovers on the Mars surface. Odyssey also site for the Mars exploration rovers Spirit and Opportunity, NASA's Phoenix mission, and the Curiosity Mars Science Laboratory. Gemini spacecraft launch. The primary goals were to test the Titan II launch vehicle, the structural integrity of the Gemini spacecraft, and the compatibility between the launch vehicle and spacecraft. The spacecraft was tracked until it re-entered the atmosphere and disintegrated on the 64th orbital path over the southern Atlantic on April the 12th. Recovery of the Gemini spacecraft was not an objective of the mission. In fact, holes were drilled through its heat shield to assure that it did not survive re-entry into the atmosphere. April the 9th, 1959, the anticipation had been building, and on this day in 1959, NASA publicly introduced the Mercury astronaut team. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The rules for this briefing are very simple. In about 60 seconds, we will give you the announcements we've all been waiting for, the names of the 7 volunteers who will become the Mercury astronaut team. It is my pleasure to introduce to you, and I consider it a very real honor to from your right, Malcolm S. Carpenter, Leroy G. Cooper, John H. Glenn Sr., Virgil I. Griffith, Walter M. Sherrod Jr., Alan B. Shepard Jr., and Donald K. Slayton are the nation's Mercury astronauts. These men were soon to become household names and genuine heroes. The Mercury flights proved that humans could live and work in space and paved the way for the Gemini and Apollo programs as well as for all further human space flight. Finally, this evening, we have several birthdays, astronaut birthdays for this past week, starting with April the 3rd, 1926, John Grissom. He was Mercury Redstone 4 and 3, and perished in the Apollo 1 test launch. On April the 5th, 1949, Judith Sputnik, who was on space STS-D and the ill-fated Challenger mission STS-51L. Also on April the 5th, Franklin James Diaz, who was on several space shuttle missions, STS-61C, STS-34, 46, 60, 70, 91, and 111. Wow. April the 9th, 1950, today is the day of on space shuttle missions STS-56, 69, 80, 98, and also 111. And so today is the birthday of Timothy Copra, born in 1963. Space shuttle missions STS-127 and 128 as part of Expedition 20, and he was also on Expeditions 46 and 47. Finally, April 1976, Serena Allion Chancellor, who was part of Expedition 56 and 57. And that this evening, this is K5 KTX. Back to you, Brenda.
Thank you, Kelly. This is WB5OZL. Do we have any more check-ins? Okay, next we have Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. Chaz, KF5, Chaz. Go ahead, Chaz.
Good evening once again, everyone. I'm going to monitor myself over here on Echolink and see how the static sounds. Sounds a little bit better. Slide number 17. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent Key. Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019 with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. That's around this constellation. Constellation. So Miss Carolyn covered the entire size for Texas in a year. In her honor, we've continued that tradition of a per week and named this segment after her. Miss Carolyn's constellations of the week this week is Pyxis, the compass, and Antella, the pump. Pyxis, the mariner's compass, was originally part of and the Argon, part of the ship's mast. In spite of this long-standing tradition, the 17th century French astronomer Nicole Louis LaSalle remapped stars into new constellations. Pyxis Nautica, the mariner's compass. Number 18, the jokes of the week. Okay, this is the reason why you're up so late. Yeah, yes, Kelly says, yikes, the jokes. Okay, here we go. What do you call a crocodile with a map and a compass? A navigator. I actually told this several times at campus this week. The letters on my compass suddenly came to life to tell me that I'm going in the wrong way. I couldn't believe the news. N-E-W-S. You know, north, east, west, and south. The abbreviation. Okay, that didn't work very well, did it? How do you tell the compasses are intelligent? Because they're all graduated. Oh, great. Bob is on the outside door wanting in. Why throw out a broken compass? Well, what's the point of doing it? That's funny. Okay, this is a joke that happened way before the Ukraine event. What's the way to get to Russia, Alaska? Use a compass and keep your bearings straight. I'm getting more laughs, I think, meowing at the door. My compass broke on a hiking trip. It went south very quickly. Slide master, slide number 19, please. How do we find Pyxis, the compass? Let's begin with something familiar. Orion's belt, line to the left, which is to the east from the brightest part of the sky. The sun. Don't serious. I'm not serious, but you already know that the star is. Continue to the left, again going to the east, and then to the few stars of Pyxis. Slide number 20. Alpha Pyxis is Beta Cephei type variable star. It's also a double star. Magnitude 8.5 companion is easy to see because it's 107 arc seconds from the primary, which is quite a distance. The primary star appears white, while the companion star is sort of an orange hue. Beta Pyxis is also a double star, but it's a bit more challenging to split than Alpha. The companion star is fairly close at 12.5 arc seconds. Beta looks white through a telescope. Zeta Pyxis is another double star. There's not much color difference between the two stars. One is a G4, the other one's a G0. Those are spectral classifications. Primary star is 5.5 magnitude, and the companion star is magnitude 10. Slide number 21, please. Said Bob for the evening, but he wants back in. I'm sorry. NBC 2627 is an open cluster. It's a bit difficult because it's not an obvious standout object. Please find this object in an 8-inch telescope. This cluster is situated in the Milky Way star field, so it's not very conspicuous. Stars of the cluster are concentrated just enough when compared to the surrounding star field. It stands out from the background a little bit. Slide master, slide number 22. NGC 2613 is an Hadron galaxy and is surprisingly nice to see. It's not a knock your socks off object, but it's not very bright. But it is visible and noticeable as a fuzzy streak in an 8-inch telescope, even though it's an edge-on galaxy. Averted vision helps seeing it. I don't know if we've talked about that recently, about averted vision. We'll cover that another time. Slide number 23, please. NGC 2818 is an open cluster of stars with seemingly embedded planetary nebulars similar to M46. NGC 2818 is not a true member of the cluster in spite of how it appears. Accurate studies of proper motion and radial velocities of the cluster stars and the nebula show that their velocities are quite different. Planetary nebula is a four-ground object and not a true cluster member. Star cluster of the planetary nebula can be observed in an 8-inch or even a 10-inch telescope or larger. And this is KF5 JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 24. Antella is a small, faint constellation located in the southern sky. Its name is an ancient Greek word for the pump, or air pump, which it represents. Antella does not have any myths associated with it. Antella was created and cataloged by the French astronomer Nicolas Lasalle in the 18th century, along with 13 other constellations introduced by Lasalle to fill in the void of some faint regions in the southern sky. Lasalle's constellations are mostly named after scientific instruments like a compass, and no myths are attached to them. Antella is a small constellation, 62nd in size, occupying an area of 239 square degrees. Slide master, slide number 25. Now, how do you find Antella? Let's begin with Orion's belt. Draw a line from the left, which is east, and develop until you run into the bright star in the sky. We've already done this. It's called Sirius. Yeah, I already told this joke, didn't I? Then continue to the left, and again you go east. You'll run into the faint stars of Pyxis. Go a little bit further to the left, east, and you run into the faint stars of Antella. Slide master, slide number 26, please. Theta Antella is a binary star approximately 384 light years away. Consists of A and B. A is a white A-type star, and B is a yellow-white F-type star. The combined magnitude is about 4.78. Eta Antella is also a binary star, 106 light years in distance, with an apparent magnitude of 5.2. Delta Antella is another double star, approximately 481 light years away. The brighter component is an apparent magnitude of 5.57. It's classified as a blue sequence dwarf. Slide master, slide number 27. Antella the Hun. That's pretty good, JJ. Okay. Oh, I'm reading Echo Link over here, too. Antella, a dwarf galaxy, which is called PGC 29194, is a dwarf spheroidal galaxy located about 4.3 million light years from the Earth. It's a very faint object with a magnitude of 16.2. This is not something you'd see through a telescope. You need to look at it photographically. Slide master, slide number 28. The Antella cluster, Abel S0636, is a cluster of galaxies within the Hydra Centaurus supercluster, which is in turn the closest neighbor to the Virgo supercluster in which the Milky Way galaxy is located. The cluster is the third closest to our local group, and only the Fornax cluster and the Virgo cluster lie closer. The Antella cluster contains about 234 galaxies and is dominated by two supermassive elliptical galaxies, NGC 3258, NGC 3268. It's located about 32 million light years from the Earth. And this is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide number 29. More Astronomical League observing program objects on the constellation of Pyxis, the compass, and until the pump. I've just given you a sampling of some of those objects. Astronomical League has about 73 different observing programs, which all have about 100 objects. So if you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn a certificate and a pen in about a year. And that is Miss Carolyn's Constellations of the Week, Pyxis, the Compass, and Until the Pump. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson, Dennis Harwell, for their research and words on the deep sky objects I use, borrow, and steal from them for tonight and every Skynet. I also at times use the website constellation-guide.com for information. Now, next time I'll take a look at Sextans, the Sextant, and Hydra, the Water Snake. And this is KF5 JHA sending it back to our net control, Brenda. It's all yours again. 73, everyone.
Thank you, Chaz. Next, we'd like to call on Tom, KE5ICX, for a report on space launches for this week.
All right, thank you, Brenda. I'm going to, hang on a sec. Up the power a little bit since the sound's so bad. Let's see, April 15th we have Falcon 9 launch from SLC-4E at the Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. The SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket will launch a classified payload from the National Reconnaissance Office, the U.S. government spy satellite agency. The mission is designated Enroll 85. First stage will return to Landing Zone 4 at Vandenberg. On April 20th, we have a Falcon 9 Crew 4 launching from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The rocket will launch a Crew Dragon spacecraft on its 7th flight with astronauts. The Falcon 9's first stage booster will land on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. NASA's astronauts Kyle Lindgren, Richard Hines, Jessica Watkins, and European Space Agency astronaut Samantha Cristoforetti will launch on the Crew Dragon spacecraft to begin a 6-month expedition on the International Space Station. Crew Dragon will return to a splashdown at sea. In late April, there'll be another Falcon 9 launch with Starlink 4-14. This is from SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. The SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket will launch with another batch of Starlink Internet satellites. Falcon 9's first stage will land on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. Also in April, but to be determined for the launch window, will be from Kourou, French Guiana, ELA-3, which will launch on an Ariane 5 ECA rocket designated PA-57 to launch the VSAT 3D and GSAT-24 communication satellites. Built by Airbus Defence and Space for MESAT, the Malaysian operator, MESAT-3 is a multi-mission communication satellite outfitted with C-band, Ku-band, and Ka-band payloads for direct-to-home TV broadcasting and Internet services over Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. MESAT-24 direct-to-home TV broadcasting satellite for the India Space Research Organization. Determined in April will be a launch from SLC-46 Canaveral Space Force Station, Florida, commercial small satellite launch vehicle developed by a small CubeSat for NASA's TROPICS mission. Unresolved observation of precipitation structure and storm intensity with a constellation of small sats or TROPICS mission will measure environmental and inner core conditions for a tropical cyclone. Then we do have an actual date, April 30th, a Falcon 9 launch from SLC-4 Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. The SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket will launch the NowSat 301 geostationary communications satellite. NowSat 301, built by Thales Alenia Space, will digital broadband and internet connectivity services for the Egyptian operator Nilesat. the stage booster will land on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean.
Hey, well, you just quit, but that was the end of it, so I'll assume that you're done. Thank you so much. This is WB50ZL, and the next segment is Recent Astronomical Discoveries. This article is entitled, Scientists Connect the Dots Between Galilean Moon Auroral Emissions on Jupiter. On November 8th, 2020, NASA's craft intense beam of electrons Jupiter's largest moon, the auroral footprint on the gas planet. Institute scientists used data from Juno's payload to study the particle population traveling along the magnetic field line connecting Ganymede to Jupiter, while at the same time remotely sensing the associated auroral emissions to unveil the mysterious processes creating the shimmering lights. Jupiter's most massive moons each create their own auroras on Jupiter's north and south poles, said Dr. Vincent Hugh, lead author of a paper outlining the results of his research. Each auroral footprint, as we call it, is magnetically connected to their respective moon, kind of like a magnetic leash connected to the moon, glowing on Jupiter itself. Like the Earth, Jupiter experiences auroral light around the polar regions as particles from its massive magnetosphere interact with molecules in the Jovian atmosphere. However, Jupiter's auroras are significantly more intense than Earth's, and unlike Earth, Jupiter's largest moon also create auroral spots. The Juno mission, led by Dr. Scott Bolton, is circling Jupiter the electron connecting Ganymede with its associated auroral footprint. Prior to Juno, we knew that these emissions can be quite complex, ranging from a single auroral spot to multiple spots, which sometimes trail the auroral curtain that we call the footprint tail, said Dr. Luis Zasley, a co-author from Princeton University. Juno, flying extremely close to Jupiter, revealed these auroral spots to be even more complex than previously thought. Ganymede is the only moon in our solar system that has its own magnetic field. Its mini-magnetosphere interacts with Jupiter's massive magnetosphere, creating waves that accelerate electrons along the gas giant's magnetic field lines, which can be directly measured by Juno. Two SWRI-led instruments on Juno, the Jovian Auroral Distributions Experiment, or JADE, and Ultraviolet Spectrometer, UVS, provided the key data for this study, which was also supported by Juno's magnetic field sensor built at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center. JADE measured the electrons traveling along the magnetic field lines, while UVS imagines the related auroral footprints, said SWRI's Dr. Thomas Greathouse, a co-author on this study. This way, Juno is both able to measure the electron rain and immediately observe the UV light it creates when it crashes into Jupiter. Previous Juno measurements showed that large magnetic perturbations accompany the electron beams causing the auroral footprint. However, this time, Juno did not observe similar perturbations with the electron beam. If our interpretation is correct, the confirmation of a that we put together to explain the morphology of the auroral footprints, said Dr. Bertrand Bonford, a co-author of the study from the Liège University in Belgium. The theory suggests that electrons accelerated in both directions create a multi-spot dance. The relationship further explored by Juno's mission, as well as the forthcoming JUICE mission from the European Space Agency, Huey said. SWRI is building the next generation of UVS instrumentation for the mission. All right, next, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. E5 ICX.
All right, thank you, Brenda. I don't have a lot for you tonight, but what I've got is Tiangong. Nothing favorable for ISS, so forget that. Tiangong has, which is the Chinese space station, April 17th has a good pass, 0.9 magnitude, 6:06 in the morning, reaches its highest point at 86 degrees, almost completely overhead at 6:08, falls at 6:11 at. So it is possible to see it. SAT are ever favorable north to south satellite, polar satellite, as passes. Let me see here. We have, get to come up. April 11th has one out of the north, of course, at 6:11, reaches its highest point directly overhead at 6:16, falling to south at 6:21. There's another pass on April 14th. That one is magnitude. This will be a little tough to see, but maybe able to at 5:59 a.m. Reaches its highest point at 6:04 at 74 degrees, falling to the south at 6:09. And there is the 17th. That one is 3.7 magnitude, 5:47 in the morning again. Reaches its highest point at 5:52 at 56 degrees, and it falls due south at 5:57. That's it, Brenda. I don't have any better ones than that. Back to you, KE5ICX.
Okay, thank you. This is WB50ZL. Do we have any final check-ins?
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth.
Okay, we've got Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean. Welcome to the net. All right, so this one fills. Tonight we had 23 hams participating on the air. Thank you to all who checked in this evening. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all other ARC nets. If you would like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. Until next Saturday night, this is WB50ZL, Brenda. I'll be closing the net at 10:27 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. But wait, there's more. Tom, KE5ICX, tell us about our next net, please?
Thank you, Brenda, for doing the nested thing. And yes, we have the Afterglow Movie Net coming up. We have an Australian film called 2067 that came out in 2021 last year. Not bad, kind of interesting, a little confusing. So we'll be coming back to discuss that in about 5 minutes. And don't worry, don't be shy. If you haven't seen the movie, that's okay. It's time travel. We get nosebleeds, and we get to talk about time travel movies and how crazy they actually are. So come back in about 5 minutes. This is KE5ICX.
Normal state. W5FC.
I'm completely operational and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow Movie Net.
Perfect, but totally understandable. You just got some annoying crackles. NT 5 TM.
All right, thank you. Boy, we got to get you back. You're so close to the repeater. Because you're so close to the repeater. This is KE5ICX, up your net control for tonight when we talk about the Afterglow movie. We're back to time travel. This one, we went from crime fighters to time travel. This movie, 2060, an Australian science fiction film directed and written by Seth Larney, and is a treatment from a story by a guy named Gavin Davis, and starring some people I've never heard of before. I'll see what I can do. Like most time travel stories, it's got a very elaborate plot, so I'm just going to give you the first overall setup details about it and not give you the whole thing, because it could take forever explaining this. In the year 2067, Earth has been devastated by climate change and an ongoing nuclear war. The one city in the ruins of Australia has been able to hold out against these catastrophic changes thanks to synthetic oxygen. This oxygen is tainted with a deadly virus and gradually causes deadly affliction known as the sickness. Ethan White, a cares for his wife, Zant, who is afflicted with the sickness. One day, Ethan is called before Regina Jackson, the Chronic Corp CTO, who explains that the sickness will eventually wipe out humanity. During a test of the Chronicle, a prototype time machine, the quantum physicist, Ethan's late father, has worked on before his death 20 years prior. The scientist received a radio signal from 400 years in the future with a message specifically sent Ethan to them. To send Ethan to them in hopes of finding a cure for the sickness and preventing the extinction of mankind. Ethan is asked to be sent into the future. He refuses, as he might enter, never able to return, and he resents his father for abandoning he and his mother. But Zany and Ethan's guardian and work colleague Jude managed to change his mind. After surviving a traumatic time, Ethan finds himself in a lush rainforest and a hand computer and a wrist as a child by Richard. As his only piece of equipment is an entrance structure, a skeleton wearing his jumpsuit, with holes in his skull, as well as decaying Archie and a familiar wrist device. The discovery of his apparently sorrowful death in the future and sits out from eating his berries in his rescue Jude, who has followed through time after life readings transmitted through the Chronicle were failing. After sharing their findings, they follow Archie's directions to another still functional door, which is revealed to lead to the Chronicle lab. Ethan's wrist device is revealed to be a DNA analyzer, specifically made to grant him access to the Chronicle, which sets himself an automatic reactivation in 4 hours. From the holographic recording left by Richard Wilde, the duo learns that the Chronicle project originated the activation atmosphere, which would answer years and then transmit the data back to the past. First, Richard is surprised to receive a message to send to the future, so despite his misgivings, however, the immediate follow-up mission was rendered impossible because safely sending living matter through time required an operational link from both sides, and the data showed the power failure in 2474. And on we go. Activation of the Chronicle triggers a malfunction of its nuclear power core, threatening to unleash nuclear accounts completed. Power failure that they had previously indicated there with to power core, which is located beneath the overgrown ruins of their home city. Finding the ruins littered with skeletons, including Xanath, they conclude that the sickness was never found. Some comforting words, Ethan recognizes the recording he found in the decaying hard computer, given moments before his future, his self being killed, telling Ethan that he was saving Ethan from himself. The emergency override, Ethan decides to go inside of an airlock and pull the lever. With 37 minutes to spare, the duo return to the Chronicle lab, where Ethan finds another accident that skeleton that Ethan suffers a nervous breakdown and implores Jude to kill him, which she refuses to do. Jude then confesses that there is no actual hope of ever changing the future. Refusing to believe that, Ethan locks Jude in a room. Back as his logs on the day of Richard died, Ethan learns that his mission was a sham from the beginning. And to flee from her dying time into the future with a chosen few to start anew, while Richard maintained and the hope that the message must have been said by somebody, indicating there was yet hope more of humankind. In order to prevent its abuse, Richard keyed the time machine to Ethan's DNA, but when Richard's colleague announced that the machine could be rigged to send a person to the future one way, Jackson killed Richard. Jude was appointed as Ethan's guardian to ensure that Ethan would be sent forward in time to repair the power failure and stabilize the time portal. Once Ethan returned to 2067, Jackson was killed. And the payoff. Ethan tried to shut the Chronicle down. Jude moves. When Ethan refused to fight him, Jude killed Ridley. Commit suicide. Just before Jackson put her plans into motion, Ethan sent Ethan White message into the past along with a copy of Richard's recorded murder on Archie, hundreds of live jungle plants, and a farewell gift to his Aunt Zine. The timeline. In the past, Jackson is arrested after Archie transmits the recording to the news station. Plants are used to revitalize the planet. In the future, Ethan's corpse is gone, and Ethan discovers his formerly ruined city is advanced and populated by future humans with metallic skin. And they all lived happily ever after. The end. Okay, now you've heard the plot. As you would expect, it's a time travel story with the looping stuff and the confusing things that happen, and the fact that can you change time, the central theme with any time travel movie. Unless you're watching The Time Tunnel, where nobody seemed to care about the fact that time could change. That was the whole mess by Irwin Allen, and a completely different story. So what I'll do now is I'll go ahead and hopefully you can still hear me okay and you haven't given up. But I'm going to go ahead and check in. Please come with your call sign, your name, and did you see the film? It is not a requirement that you have seen the film to join our net. We will talk about something involving time travel. So please come now with your call sign, name, and did you see 2067? We'll start now.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in East Dallas. Yes, I saw the film.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu, Brenda and DeSoto. Yes, I saw.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth. Yes, I've seen the movie.
Let me see who E5 Tony in East Dallas. Yep, you saw the E50ZL. L, Brenda DeSoto, yeah, she saw it. KB5SOK, Sean and Fort saw it. KAF5BZW, Jane near Weatherford. You were really scratched. I recognized your voice over even the call sign. I'm going to put you down as you probably saw it. You may want to go to Echolink because you're really weak into an already weak repeater. Do we have anyone else who'd like to check in? Please come now with your call sign name. Did you see the movie 2067? Okay, sometimes folks will show up later on. It's Peter's being very bad tonight. I imagine a few people are a little discouraged this evening. So let's go ahead and we'll start. Tony, you got the best signal anyway, so tell us, what did you think about the plot for 67?
Good evening, Tom. I will have to leap ahead into the third round with everything else and say that my enjoyment of the plot was impaired by Australian English. I am not Australian. I've honestly had more friends from Bulgaria than I have from Australia. I'm not good at Australian accents. It took me forever to realize that that guy's name was Jude and not Dude. So I was a little frustrated. But that said, I still think I got the essence of the problem that this movie poses, which is that inside every mediocre movie, there is a pretty good movie waiting to get out with more editing. There were just too many scenes stretching out the plot of shouting and growling and threatening to shoot one another, which is funny because this is not a Bruce Willis movie, and Quentin Tarantino had nothing to do with it either. Too much shouting and threatening to shoot people. And I would have really liked to cut a lot of that out to let the characters just focus on, we haven't changed the past. Can we change the past? Maybe should we try something else? They didn't let them focus on that. There was too much shouting, too much incomprehensible shouting, and that weakened the plot. So particularly the second act some, the third act more, needed more tight editing. That said, this movie also had a plot hole problem in line with the recent popular movie Don't Look Up. Why are all these elite scientists and technicians helping to work together to send a tiny minority of the wealthy, super powerful, super lucky, whoever they are, elite, into an idyllic future? If I know that I'm going to be dead within a month, why am I working on the particle accelerator to save you and your children? What's in it for me? I mean, do I get an extra Dr. Pepper or something? Why did I even do that? So there is this enormous plot hole of why this project is even holding together when they get one 30-second chance to reach into the future. But that said, I kept watching. I felt suspense. I really feel that with more cuts, with less shouting, with, perhaps a little tiny bit of rewriting here and there, this could have been a really above-average movie. I really think it could be saved. They didn't, but it really could have been, much like humanity with the need to send all those ferns back to the time machine. They were almost there. They needed some ferns from the future. NC5TF.
All right, very good. Thank you, Tony. Okay, you actually gave it a little more of a positive response than you did the poor Batman movie. So you must be in a better mood tonight. That's good. We'll come back to you in a little bit over characterization, which I think you've already said are a bunch of yelling, screaming people. So we'll go to Brenda, WB5OZL. Brenda, you saw the movie. In fact, I saw it with you virtually. What did you think of 2067?
This is WB5OZL. Well, I won't say I hate it, but I have such a problem with time travel movies. They just never even make an attempt to explain anything, and so it just leaves you feeling empty. Like, well, what happened? Well, what's going to happen? What'd they do? And it's just a cop-out. They just don't explain things. I will say, found the movie engaging. I didn't want to get up and leave. I wanted to see what happened. The music was annoying and made it hard to hear, and I didn't have captions, which I usually turn on, but they didn't have them in English. They had them in some other language that I don't speak, and so it was hard to tell sometimes what they were saying, and I think that really disturbed things. If you can't hear it, you don't know what's going on. I was very uncomfortable with the kid's father. I thought he was a very weak person in this thing, and I just kind of felt like they didn't do a real good job of explaining what happened, or more of the plot, and what was going on. And even after reading about it on the internet, I still feel kind of a sense of unfulfillment, that they tried, but they just missed the mark on this time travel thing. Back to net, W50ZL.
All right, thank you, Brenda. Next up is Sean, KB5SOK. Sean, your thoughts on the plot to the movie 2067 from KE5ICX.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Yeah, I agree with Tony a lot on this one, and Brenda. It was a little rough to watch for sure. The audio really made it difficult. I found myself having to rewind it a lot to try to understand what was being said. It seemed like it was a copy that was very poorly converted for YouTube, so it did make it kind of took some of the enjoyment away from it. But yeah, the plot seemed kind of weak. I agree with Tony in the fact that I think this could have been a really good movie. I think there's things they could have done that would have saved it. I agree. The ending sequence there made no sense between the two guys, even though that there's a secret plot in the background. It still seemed like they'd become friends, and I just don't know that you would have betrayed your friend in that way. And one of the biggest plot holes is, of course, time travel has got tons, and that's why you get nosebleeds. But the fact that they found his dead body, that made no sense, because if he were in a loop, he wouldn't have died yet. His body wouldn't have been there yet. So, I think there was another movie that kind of did the same thing, and that part just really kind of messed it up for me. I know that was a major plot twist, and that's how, he knew something was not right, and of course that's how he found the recordings, and obviously without that they would have not really had a movie. But that to me was a major, major flaw in this. And I also agree with Tony too. Why would people keep working on it, especially when they killed the kid's father, the leader, the brains behind this, and they continued to work on it for years? You would have thought somebody would have been asking some questions. So yeah, the whole thing, there's just a lot of holes in this. It really needed seriously reworked, to make it better. And then, and this may be going too much into characterization, but our main character kind of drove me nuts too, along with the yelling and the screaming with him, constantly just kind of whining about everything. It was, I realized that they were trying to tell how bleak it was and why he did it. But I don't know. It just seemed weak. I mean, if you thought you had the chance to save your wife, well, why would you struggle so much with going into the future to do it? Most people do about anything for their loved ones. So I don't know. It just this one. Yeah, I ain't gonna say it was horrible, but it like everybody else, I wanted to continue to watch it, but it just, I found it somewhat just hard to watch at times. So yeah, there's probably about it on the plot there. It's a time travel movie. Back to that. This is KB9SOK.
All right, thank you, Sean, and don't disagree at all. Next is Jay, KF5BZW. Jay, I don't see on Echolink, so I'm hoping you can do a lot with your power at your end, but if you're there, go ahead and tell us your thoughts on the plot for 2067 from KE5ICX. That he might bug out only because I couldn't tell if he said he had seen the movie or not, and I have a feeling he did not, so he bugged out. So I didn't. So it does not surprise me. But I'll go ahead and ask. Does anyone else want to join us this evening? Please come now with your call sign, your name, and did you see the movie 2067? Our this week's time travel extravaganza. Please come now. Okay, I think this evening is going to be a quick one. Let's see here. What did I think about the plot? Well, I like most time travel things. You got to have the loop. You got to have to see yourself as dead. That's always a requirement. That's almost a trope that you would expect. I thought that it was interesting. One thing that was interesting that didn't make a lot of sense to me at the very beginning was the and kind of creepy with the old box thing like the witches from Dune. Just put your hand inside this box. This will hurt for a little bit. It'll hurt a little bit. It actually turned out to hurt a lot. And the father had a house because of his behavior and the everywhere. But what if you're going to have a walk from like for at least another 10 years or so. That's quite amazing. And then when you go and you find your older self as a skeleton and the battery still works, that's pretty darn good. That's what I call a the Apple product, even though it's pretty clunky looking. So we'll just have to go with that. I, too, had a problem while I'm watching this thing, trying to understand what they're saying, and I really wanted to turn on subtitles, but it already had subtitles from India or something on it, so I'm not very good with whatever that language was. So that didn't work out really well. And so understanding, spent a lot of time watching them yelling at one another, but not really knowing what they were saying. That was annoying. The thinly laid plot, I agree with Tony in regards to the gal and the sinister plot, and they're going to go forward in time and all that. That was I guess that somehow take it to some sort of very exciting, energetic conclusion, and then the twist ending where they send the drop planets back, which saves everything. That would probably make it pretty good as part of like a Twilight Zone episode or something like that. If you're going to do that, then by all means, cut another 30 minutes out of the movie, and that would have worked just fine. I think probably part of the problem is pacing and lack of enough of the script to keep it interesting. The first part, yes, very much so, very interesting. What's going on? Who's the father? Why is he doing this to his kid? Why is Ethan the guy that's being asked to come back to head into the future? All cool stuff. But then when it's all said and done, the lack of imagination as to what ultimately happens, the payoff is always kind of depressing. It doesn't pay off. Unfortunately, the idea of the the fact that you're changing time, and that everything's going to end up the same. That didn't come off as authentic as I had hoped it would, because obviously the friend, Ethan's friend, who followed him back into time, whose name escapes me right now, should have, he could have killed himself right at the very beginning and changed the timeline, or done something different or whatever, and they just kept ending up doing the things that would end up putting them basically at the same place that Ethan would end up with a hole in his head. I know that's supposed to be exciting and supposed to make for a dramatic conclusion. How are they going to end this thing, and will it loop back? Well, we know it's not, because we have to have a conclusion to the movie. But I don't know. It just seemed odd to me that they didn't have enough of a motivational change. There were so many ways they could change the ending. And I don't know. This reminds me of a couple of other movies that we've watched in the same degree, where we end up killing somebody at the end to change time. They even did that in a Star Trek episode. Poor Edith Keelover. What happened to her? Same thing. So, not much of an explanation, not much of a thing for me, because I too, as I mentioned, had trouble understanding what they were saying through the film. So my contribution is a bit weak tonight. All right, let me go ahead and ask, are there any additional check-ins before we go to characterization? We're going to go blowing through this movie pretty quickly, I think. Anyone else like to join us this evening, please come now. We're definitely going to get through this one quickly. Next up is characterization, and we're talking about the movie 2067 that came out in 2020. So Tony, NT5TM, Tony, tell us what you think about characterization, and I know it's going to include what people yell at. Go ahead, KE5IC.
Tom, I need a retransmission. You said I know what it's going to include, and there was a dropout. What's it got to include?
Your analysis of people screaming and yelling at one another. That's what it's got to include.
Okay, fair enough. Avast! Arg! Talk Like a Pirate Day isn't till September, and it's not till Talk Like a Pirate Day that I want to hear people grunting and screaming at each other. It just gets so tiresome, and you can't tell what the characters are supposed to be doing. Who are the pirates, and who are the little scalawags the pirates are robbing? I cannot tell. Yeah, I really couldn't. That drove me crazy. Another problem. Part of where they let it drag too much as the movie went on is I kind of just wanted to hit Ethan. I'm not a violent person, but I hated his mustache, and I really kind of started to hate him. It's not a good sign when the viewer wants to punch the protagonist, especially when, I've never punched anybody. But, I kind of wanted to punch him. He was just so tedious and annoying, and there was so much screaming, and none of it ever made any sense to me, and yeah. So I found the characters basically unengaging. Ethan was frustrating. If we could have followed his character arc in a more tightly structured plot, we could have identified with his anguish and thought, oh my gosh, this is awful. He's had these horrible experiences, and now he's got to overcome them and save the world. But because they made it drag on so much, screenwriter's fault, I just wanted to hit him. And all the other characters, unfortunately, were weaker than that. I had hardly any reaction to anybody. He's supposed to want to save his wife, but his wife was just kind of a caricature. Dude, or it took me forever to figure out his name. For a while, I had some doubts about him. I thought, why did your father arrange for this guy to travel into the future just to shoot you? But even that turned out to be less interesting than I thought. So, I guess it's the hallmark of a movie that isn't that great. The characters weren't that great. NT5TM.
Okay, Tony. Well, that's to be expected. I had WB50ZL. Brenda, your thoughts on characterization. I know you had a lot to say about this movie.
Thank you, WB50ZL. I didn't like anybody in this movie. I don't know if they tried to make us dislike them by, you get that impression. Make them irrational and screaming and fighting and not very likable. I just didn't relate to anybody. And there wasn't any cool banter or any real friendliness. There wasn't any warmth, except the kid had for his mother. That was about it. Aside from that, there wasn't much of we're all in this together and I'm going to help you, and there's no warm fuzzies. I don't know the actors. I guess they were okay in the part. They were probably real famous earlier, Oscar winners or something. But I didn't know them, and so I don't know if they were right for the parts or not. But I don't know how good an actor you'd have to be to bring those characters. To bring some kind of empathy to them, because there just wasn't any. And so here's this kid. His dad is a famous scientist, and he's going to be a science guy himself, but it looks like he's more of a janitor or something, and doesn't seem to be much of a science guy in the end. I don't know what happened to him in the meantime. The father was completely unliked, was just despicable, in fact. And having sympathetic characters in a movie goes a long way toward making you like it, even if it has other flaws. And this just didn't. And like all time travel movies, didn't explain stuff. You don't know what's going on, and it just kind of leaves you wanting. And the characters didn't help. And you didn't have a sense at the end of, like you would in Back to the Future, everything turned out okay and everybody's happy. And didn't have that sense here. It was just a very depressing film. Back to net, WB50ZL.
Okay, Sean, I'm sure you've got something positive to say about this film. I can just sense it. Please go ahead. KE58.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Well, I'd like to find something positive here. Yeah, your senses might be a little off tonight due to radio issues, but yeah, I do. Unfortunately, I have to agree with the group. The characters, even annoyed me as well. Maybe not punching, but a good slap to bring him back to reality would have been probably a good idea a couple times during this film. And once again, his name is the only one that I remember from the movie, so that's never a good sign. And it has nothing really to do with it being hard to understand. It's just, yeah, the characters were pretty lackluster. I'm just not really sure what to say. Like I said, Ethan was annoying. His best friend turned out to be the evil person. Not a lot of depth there either. And at the end of the day, there was still no reason to try to kill Ethan, and there know, there's no reason to kill himself. You know, I mean, yeah, that's just ridiculous. I think a lot of it was just poor writing in that area. You know, and then his wife was okay. His was okay. He would leave to make these decisions. I didn't really. And it's right. There wasn't no real good bait. You know, there wasn't conversation that should have been had of why not they were doing what they were doing. It was just, I don't know. I guess it's kind of an excuse that somebody wanted to create a time machine that looked cool, and I guess they need some dialogue in between for that. so yeah, once again, I think there was potential there, but it was just lacked, unfortunately, from the writing. And yeah, in the previous round, I forgot to bring it up. The top dead, which thank you for reminding me about the whole list thing. That really didn't make much sense to me. I was really expecting that to do something unique, other than just take a DNA sample. You know, they could have just had him look into a retina scanner. After all he had his kids, or his finger into a port or something, and take a blood sample. That just seemed, they kept making such a big deal about that, and it turned out to be such little. I really thought it was going to help out, so yeah, that was kind of disappointing as well. I don't think if there was anybody really stood out in this film, and there really was. Of course, there really actually wasn't a lot of characters. Which means they should have spent more time on them, and they didn't. I can't find that real positive on this. All right, back to that. Give me 9, that's okay.
All right, thank you. And just for the here, N5, JJ was on earlier. He's doing taxes, so he had something more fun to do than talk about movies. That should give you an indication. Comments about the characterization. We only had really 2 characters that were involved. Well, 3 if you want to include wife, and don't forget Mommy, who ended up dying from smoking, I think, more than anything, but smoking the oxygen, the synthetic oxygen. So, yeah, I found the characters themselves not very, very engaging. Ethan is just kind of a big dope sitting there, and we didn't like him, and he was a whiny guy, and the father was kind of weird, but then he just stayed weird and didn't really bring any sort of gravitas to the whole thing and the passion of the whole thing. Let's build this machine, send him back, but I don't know. It's got kind of nothing, big nothing burger there, I think. I wish I could give you more details about it, but I couldn't understand what the heck they were saying half the time, so I keep going back to that. The sick wife, well, okay, fine. I guess I felt bad for her when she died and they found her skeleton, and everybody's skeleton was sitting around. So I'm happy that he was able to change the future for everybody and have that beautiful city. Smaller than the original one, by the way. You'll notice that. It was a big, huge city. Renewals that can work and build a much nicer palette. You get a boat out, little lunch there out on the beach. So you could have all of that rather than the bunch of skeletons, I guess. Even if it did survive. What else can I say? Characterization, not a lot. Alright. That's all I can give you. Anybody else want to check in before we move to the final round? That's going to be 3-5 and out, I think. If you want to come in and say something, and then we'll go on to special. We'll make this final round the shortest one we've ever done, but we'll. I have Tony, NP5. Yeah, Tony, you got anything for us? You can talk about
thank you. I'm not sure, but I thought I might have heard another voice there. Was there anyone trying to check in? This is the final call for check-ins. Is there anyone else trying to join the Afterglow Movie Net? Please come now with your call sign phonetically, name and location. Hey, well, I guess I just imagined something. I really thought I heard another voice there that wasn't yours. Well, that actually fits perfectly with what I wanted to say for this round. And I think everyone will agree with me. This modern trend of deliberately making the dialogue incomprehensible so that it sounds more realistic because, heck, in real life, you know, sometimes you're walking by an airport and there are big jet planes and you can't hear what anyone's saying. That's not what I go to the movies for, okay? But nevertheless, a lot of people seem to think that's the right way to make a movie now, and these people were completely infected by that trend. A better audio mix, better sound engineer, whatever you call that person's title, audio editor, sound supervisor, would at least have made this movie more comprehensible. Yeah, like Brenda said, the soundtrack is overbearing. Like everyone has said, the dialogue was hard to follow. Sound, that was their Achilles heel. November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
Hey, thank you, Tony. Got a note in over on, it was from Bruce and on one of our earlier nets, and he said, I saw her first half of 2067 listening on my HD, which y'all cannot hear when I'm attempted to check in. So we did have somebody try to check in. Only commenting to register my fanhood of the net, lest anyone ever think no one is out there. So that's KI5KWG. He says he's out there. Don't worry. I got a movie for you next week. I'm going to push something ahead for everybody that might be entertaining, but I won't tell you what it is until we're done here, which is going to be only in a few minutes. So next up is WP5. All that jazz. Go ahead. I didn't hear the bubble up. I wonder if I captured the repeater. Brent, your comment. KE5ICX.
Tom, are you calling on Brenda?
Yes. Something wrong?
There were just a bunch of dropouts. Brenda, WB5OZL, Tom's calling on you. If you're there, go ahead.
This is WB5OZL. I'm sorry, I did not hear that. And what is our topic now, please?
I turned up the radio again. We're talking about anything you want, special effects, music, whatever. So I've doubled my power. Can you hear me now?
Oh, that is so much better. Yeah, and I was sitting here listening. I hadn't gone to sleep or wandered off or on the floor. You dropped out, and I just simply didn't understand you. What else can I criticize about this movie? It was dark. Way too dark. You could see what's going on, and every time I see a movie that's too dark, I think they are trying to skimp on their budget, and they said, well, we'll just darken it up. Nobody will notice. I have noticed that about movies, and I think that's what they did here. What else? Special effects, it wasn't much. Nothing there to impress me. Costumes are very boring. I just didn't much like anything about this movie, except I sat and watched it and kind of enjoyed it because it was engaging. And you're trying really hard to understand it and see what happens. And I think that's the engaging part. It's like, we got to understand this. So we tried, and we failed. We didn't understand it. But most time travel movies are like that. I can't recall having ever watched any time travel movie that made really good sense. Some are fun, like Back to the Future, certainly. That's worth doing. And they didn't even bother to try and explain it much. You know, it just is. And a lot of Star Trek has time travel, and they explain that badly. But, you know, they didn't do such a bad job of it as this movie did. Let's see, what else can I trash? Despite not liking the movie much, I had a sense of sadness at people dying. And it was a very dark movie. There wasn't much hope. There wasn't any joy. There wasn't any success or any enlightenment. So the elements that usually make something a good story were just not there. Back to net, WB50ZL.
All right, thank you, Brenda. Thanks for your comments. KB5SOK, Sean, you've got words for anything music, special effects, cinematography, or something you missed on the first 2 rounds. Go right ahead from KE5ICX.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Yeah, once again, I agree with the group. You know, the audio was bad, the music was overbearing. It definitely suffered from, you know, that part of it, which, you know, even if you don't have a big budget, there's really still no excuse for that. Unless you literally have no budget, which maybe they did. But, yeah, that was probably one of the worst parts of it, besides, obviously, the script. Needed some definite work. The special effects were, passable, I guess. For a movie made just, you know, a year ago, I would have expected maybe a little better. But once again, I didn't really do any research on this. I don't know what their budget was. I mean, I guess the time travel wormhole looked okay. But there wasn't a whole lot of other than them running around the woods. It looks like they filmed that part, the same place that they filmed Lost, where they had the underground bunkers. I'm pretty sure I've seen that exact same door before in other movies, so nothing real special there. It's, you know, I think Brenda actually hit it on the nail on the head on this one. You know, it wasn't really a particularly good movie, but yet I did want to see what happened at the end. I did continue to watch it. We have watched many movies where I wanted to shut it off, but I did want to see what happened, and I was really hoping for that aha moment at the end and thinking, okay, that made up for everything else, and it just fell a little short for me. I you know, kind of going back to plot, just pushing a bunch of plants through the portal there, I don't think would have saved the world, because they had plants and let them die before. As they said earlier in the movie, the last official, some kind of tree or plant died, you know, so it's like, well, that didn't, you know, make much sense. And you only had 30 minutes. How do you have time to go find a dozer and pick up a bunch of plants and find the flower for his wife and find a container to put it in? You know, once again, goes back to just poor plot planning. But, oh well, it's not the worst thing we've seen, so, you know, like I said, it did keep me, I did want to see what happened. I didn't want to shut it off, so, yeah, this probably could have been saved. Anyway, back to that, KB9SOK.
All right, thank you, Sean. There seems to be unanimous. We all sat through to the bitter end and were disappointed, but at least we sat through it. I absolutely agree. I think that there was a lot going on. We wanted to know what the heck happened. There was a mystery to this thing. Why was what was happening in the future? How come they were asking for somebody from the present? And that was interesting. And then, of course, trying to, you know, make sense of some of the clues shows that were in it, but it was clumsily executed, I agree. Does anyone else have any comments? Anyone else like to join us this evening? Please come down with your call. Oh my, nobody wants to come forward on this one. Okay, my final comments on the film. I agree with everyone. Going and seeing it to the bitter end was a requirement because we didn't know how it was going to end. And some of the time travel looping stuff is always interesting with changes that occur, a la, what was it, Back to the Future that did a lot of that. And the fact that somehow or another there's like a connection to the present, to the future in this case, and it's continuous. There was a very interesting show, if anybody remembers, over 10 years ago now, but it was called, what was that thing called? Hang on. Was the Doctor Who spin-off called Torchwood, which, by the way, is an anagram for Doctor Who. Same letters will create Torchwood. And there's a story for that, but at any rate, it's a secret organization that tries to stamp out all the aliens that come to Earth that apparently Doctor Who has managed to bring along, so he's not really a well-liked character, but they have a time travel thing. And it takes place in two times. It takes place during World War II in England at the time, and it takes place in the present day. And the team that is in that are split up. So they leave messages to one another from the one time period, and when they get the message, they go to it, and the message is very old and crackled and behind walls and things. They got to get sledgehammers and things. So that I kind of got that vibe when they were doing this a little bit, which was interesting. I don't think all that technology would last, what was it, 300 years like it did, especially the batteries, but that's just me. Music, picture quality, kind of dark. It was a little blurry because I don't think that was a actual approved version for YouTube. I think this was added by somebody, so it wasn't as good as it could have been. That sometimes happens. Try and watch the ones with the commercials and everything in them, but I didn't know any better on this one, so it's not like that's YouTube's fault. Let's see, anything else to say? The time machine, everybody's got to have a time machine that looks different. That's the one thing you can say about time machines is they can be anything. They can be a chair with a rotating disc in the back all the way to a tunnel that you have to step through to this thing that looks like it was left over from a disco party. If it works, it works. People are happy. All right, well, we did a little under an hour on this one, so I think that's because there wasn't enough plot to talk about anything, so we'll leave it at that. Does anyone have any final comments before I spring on you next week's movie? Any additional comments or check-ins or whatever? Please come down.
NT5TM.
Center V50ZL.
Wow, I wasn't expecting that. We'll start with Tony, NT5TM. Tony, go ahead.
Don't worry, I have nothing deep or challenging to say. I just wanted to say, Tom, thank you very much for staying up and sticking with it. I really appreciate the effort. I had fun commiserating with everybody over this movie. Thank you to everybody who watched it and shared their thoughts. NT5TM.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate it. And as I said last week, I enjoy doing it. I don't mind at all. WB50ZL, Brenda, your final thoughts.
Oh, WB50ZL. Yeah, something we haven't touched on is the hokey premise of this movie. Humanity is close to extinction because of climate change. Trees have disappeared, and natural oxygen doesn't exist any longer. So I wonder where it went. So people must rely on synthetic oxygen, but it's very expensive and the poor can hardly afford it. And it also is gradually causing a sickness. Our world is full of oxygen. I don't know why they didn't have produced it or maybe extracted it from water or something. I didn't quite understand that whole the whole explanation there. Back to net, WB50ZL.
Well, yeah, that is interesting because making oxygen is a fairly easy thing to do. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, you could use electrolysis. They have nuclear power. How come they couldn't make oxygen? I don't know. Crazy, I guess. But we had to have that little vendor in there to say, well, they poisoned it somehow. Okay, fine, they poisoned it, but you can still, like, go outside and chemistry it, get a couple of electrodes, do the whole thing, and have hydrogen and oxygen. And you got an unlimited power supply from whatever nuclear thing is. You should make a look. Oxygen. So what do we know? And don't forget, trees make oxygen from carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide builds up. Basic chemistry, kids. That's all it is. What can I tell you? All right, next week's movie. I was going to do another a movie that I had not seen. I think it was The Malice in Wonderland. But last night, when watching this other film, the 2057, a second film came on, and it was called Magellan. And I started watching it, and I thought, well, this actually looks like it might be entertaining. Now, don't get your hopes up. It has a high rating from some people and not so high ratings from others. So that's what it says. One of the people said, for a low-budget movie, I found it captivating and enjoyable. If you're a fan of deep sci-fi, contact, interstellar, etc., then you will likely enjoy this. It does not have the thrills of monsters, explosions, and the edge-of-your-seat suspense. It is a surprisingly realistic portrayal of how first contact might actually occur. My only complaint is the very minimal set design and equipment in the spaceship, but I understand this is a very low budget. They still did a pretty good job. So, and this guy gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So that's a pretty good description. I stopped it after about 15 minutes because it was my bedtime and I wasn't going to make it. So that'll be next week's movie. I'll put all the information up where I normally do. We'll watch Magellan. This is from 2017. Okay, that's it for me. Jeez, we're going to end early. I'm going to go watch Night Stalker. That might be a little fun. I never watch it with sound, so this will be interesting watching it with people speaking. See y'all later. This is KE5ICX.